G'day, thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to explore a problem that's really easy to solve in Excel, but becomes a little bit more challenging when we switch over to Power BI. That is, how do we left align the currency symbol when we're presenting financial information? For this demonstration, I'm going to use the AdventureWorks dataset, but the real-world use case scenario of this technique would obviously be financial reporting. All right, now let's start by having a look at how we would achieve a left aligned currency symbol in Excel. And then we'll switch back into Power BI and have a look at how we're going to solve it using a DAX calculation. In Excel, I've connected to my Power BI report dataset using the Analyze in Excel feature. And I've built a simple little pivot table giving me exactly the same insight that we seen on our Power BI desktop file. Now, in Excel, getting this left alignment is easy. I can just choose my column here for total sales. I can right-click on one of the cells and choose Format Cells. The format is currently set up to be currency. If I change this to Custom, I can now choose this custom option here, $ asterisk space hash comma hash hash 0, and that will then give me the left aligned currency symbol. So this is the format that we're chasing, but how do we get it inside Power BI? Okay, how are we going to solve this problem with our total sales and getting the currency symbol to left align? So one option we could consider would be, can we just change the formatting of how total sales is presented? And for some situations, that would be a perfectly valid approach. Selecting my total sales measure, I'll come up to the currency format, and I'm going to type in something completely bogus. I'm going to turn this into a percentage, but you'll see that we can manipulate formatting directly using the same patterns that we would use in Excel. So if I go hash comma hash 0%, we can see that we have successfully changed these numbers into a representation of percentages. Now, if that's the case, can we use the same format string that was being used inside Excel? So let's try it out. That was $ space hash comma hash hash 0. When I press enter, we get an undesirable behavior. Instead of left aligning the currency symbol, we just get a $ asterisk space in front of the number being returned for total sales. So clearly, we're going to have to take a different approach. We can't, in this case, just use the same formatting string that we would use in Excel. Okay, I've just undone those last couple of changes to return my total sales back to its normal state. So how are we going to solve this left alignment challenge? Well, to be able to do this, we're going to have to write a little bit more DAX. And rather than doing it inside my total sales measure, I'm going to create another measure so I can sit the two side by side and we can clearly see the difference between the standard presentation of currency and our left aligned currency presentation. Okay, I'm going to create a new measure. This measure I'm going to call LA total sales because I want it to be left aligned total sales. To achieve this, we're going to actually have to take advantage of the variable syntax within DAX because we're going to have to set up a few parameters within the way the calculation is evaluated in order to get the desirable outcome. So I'm going to start with just a simple variable that I'm going to call sales text. And to start with, I'm just going to return the same calculation that I use in total sales, which is sum of the sales table extended amount. Because I'm working in variables, I need to return this. So in this case, I'm going to return sales text. And now that I'm returning something, I'll add my measure into my visual so I can start to see it take place. Okay, now you can see I've called this variable sales text. And there's a reason for that. That's because we need to convert the total sales calculation into text in order to be able to separate the currency symbol from the number. At the moment, I can't tell if I'm returning text or not. So to test that, I'm going to wrap my return inside a isText function. IsText determines whether or not the value we're returning is text. It will return true if the value is text, and it will return false if the value is a number. And we can see in the column that we're now returning a row of false. So sales text is currently returning a number, not text. There is a special function called format that allows us to convert a number into text. So I'm going to go back into my sales text variable, and I'm going to add an extra function in front of it called format. The value that I want to format is the sum of the sales extended amount. And then the format I want to return, in this case, is not going to be the end outcome. That won't work. Instead, what I want to return is how does the number present itself. And in this case, I want the number to present as hash, comma, hash, hash, 0, so no decimal places, close brackets, and enter. And when the visual updates, we can now see that sales text is returning true. So sales text is indeed now text. And if I just remove the isText function from the return, we can see the values being returned are the same values as total sales, except they're now left aligned. Now that's interesting. The number being returned by total sales with a currency symbol in front of it is right aligned. But this variable called sales text, which is text, is returning left aligned. Interesting. And we're going to play to that. So now that we've got the value returning left aligned, we have a new problem, and that is that the units of the value being returned are no longer vertically aligned from the right. If we have a look at the total sales column, looking at bytes specifically, we can see that there is vertical alignment between the number, the $9.9 million worth of mountain bikes, the $14 million worth of road bikes, and the $3.8 million worth of touring bikes. Each number is vertically aligned here. So how are we going to achieve a similar vertical alignment on our sales text value now that the sales text is moving from left rather than right? The solution to that is that we're going to create another variable called padding. Okay, now to start with, I'm just going to pad the number out with a 0 so I can see how it comes together. So in order to pad my number, I need a function called repeat. REPT takes a text value, and so the value that I want to use in the padding, in this case, will be a 0 in text form. And then how many times do I want to repeat this value? So let's say I want to repeat it 6 times. I'll close brackets. At the moment, padding will just return 6 zeros. So I want to concatenate this with my sales text. So I can do that with a single ampersand. And now I need to return padding. Now we can see what repeat does. Repeat has put 6 zeros in front of every sales text value. This has pushed the numbers to the right, but it still hasn't solved the problem. They're still not aligning from the right-hand side of the column. They're aligning from the left-hand side of the column, and they're just all being pushed across 6 zeros to the right. So this solution doesn't quite get us there. What we need to do is replace the hard-coded 6 with a value that is more dynamic, a value that will respond based on how many numbers are being used in the sales text value. So I'll come back into my variable and I'm going to make it longer than 6. I want to repeat, in this case, 12 zeros minus the length, we use a function called len that returns the number of characters in this text string. 12 zeros minus the length of sales text. And then concatenate that against sales text. Okay, so now that we can see that we're getting the even spread of the value across the width of the column, we've got all these zeros, and I don't really want to see zeros. What I would like is blank spaces between the left-hand side of the column and the numbers. So what about if we just come back into our formula and replace our text space 0 with a space? So I've now put a space in there. We can see the little dot symbol there letting me know that there's a space there. And if I commit that into my formula, you see that we don't get any padding appearing at all. Now that's because DAX is insensitive to spaces, which is why we're able to put spaces in our formulas to increase the readability of the calculation that we're writing. But in this case, it's not going to solve our problem because I don't want to have a 0, I want to have a space, but I can't put a space in there because the DAX engine is ignoring it. So the solution here is to replace the space with a single character spanning non-printable blank character. And there is a Unicode character for that, and we can enter Unicode characters inside DAX using the unichar function. So I'm going to replace my blank text string here with unichar, and then the special character number, which is 8196, which gives me a single non-printable blank space. And now when we commit that into our formula, we get the desired outcome of the numbers all aligning vertically and appearing to be presenting from the right-hand side of the column. Okay, we're getting pretty close to our desired outcome now. We still don't have our currency symbol, but we can add that in by adding another variable. This variable I'm going to call formatted sales, and this will simply be the $ as a text string concatenated to our padding. And now I'm going to return formatted sales. And we can now see that we're getting the desired behavior. We have the currency symbol appearing all the way down the left-hand side of the column. We've got numbers appearing all the way down the right-hand side of the column. And we've got a blank padding appearing between the $ and the numbers. Now, it's important to note at this point that in order for the unichar 8196 to work effectively in this calculation, we need to be using a monospaced font. Now, there are lots of monospaced fonts for text characters, and there are lots of monospaced fonts for number characters. So Segway UI, the standard font that we use in Power BI, if you just take Power BI at its defaults, Segway UI is a monospaced character font for numbers. However, it is not a monospaced character font for text. Now, what I mean by that is if I come into my table, come over to my format, my visual, into values, we can see that I'm currently using a font called Consolus, which is monospaced in both text characters and number characters. But if I change this back to the default of Segway UI, you will see that we lose the desired outcome. We're starting to get a zigzag of the numbers again. The numbers themselves are actually evenly spaced characters. The issue in this case is a single character blank space. The unichar 8196 in Segway UI is not the same width as a number character. So in order for this solution to work, we do have to use an appropriate font, and out of the box, the only font that is monospaced for both text-based characters and number-based characters is Consolus. So I'm setting my table up with the Consolus font, and now our numbers are correctly aligning again. There's one last adjustment that we need to make to our formula, and that has to do with the rows where there is no sales. So we can see under clothing there, bib shorts is just got a $ and then blank. So my final variable is going to ensure that the value is only displayed when there is a sales value to display. So I'll add one last variable. I'm going to call this one result. And the result will be if the sum of the extended amount. Now, I don't need to say is greater than 0 because I can use this as a true or false test. If there is a value, it will return true. If there isn't a value, it will return false. So that's sufficient for my logical test. So then the result, if true, will be my formatted sales. And I don't need to provide a result if false because I want a blank to return. So I'll just close brackets here and then I will now return my result. And we can now see we're getting our desired outcome. If I just close my formula bar for a moment, we can see in our table, total sales has a value with a currency symbol hard up against the sales value. LA total sales has a currency symbol aligned left down the left-hand side of the column and the number value appearing to be right aligned down the right-hand side of the column. Now, just remembering that the font type that you're using in the display of your values is going to make a difference here, so make sure you're using an appropriate font. So to wrap, if this is a format that you want to display your currency values in, I hope I have enlightened you with how this can be achieved using DAX. As always, thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the video and I look forward to seeing you again soon.